Chapter 22, Erotic Musings. My sculpture was really coming together. I was creating delicate little laurel leaves to incorporate into the piece. I gripped the welding torch, the harsh glare reflecting in my eyes, but my focus was fractured, fragmented. The studio, usually my sanctuary, my haven, felt charged. Restless. Like me. It had been a while since the incident at the barbecue. Over a week since Polo had visited my studio and shattered my carefully constructed composure. Days since I'd agreed to go to the gala with him, a decision that felt both exhilarating and terrifying, like stepping off a cliff and hoping to fly. I should have been throwing myself into my work, channeling the turmoil, the confusion, the desire into my art. And while my sculpture was starting to really take shape, it still needed refinement and a ton of detail work. Instead of focusing, my mind kept circling back to him. To Polo. I ran a gloved hand over the cool, smooth surface of a small steel leaf, the metal a stark contrast to the heat that flared within me at the memory of his touch. My hand, almost involuntarily, mimicked the motion, tracing the curve of the metal, the hard, unyielding lines. I closed my eyes, and the studio faded away, replaced by a memory, a fantasy, a need. It was the day after the Meet the Greeks barbecue, during one of those endless rush events, a seemingly innocent volleyball game on the quad. The sun was blazing, the air thick with humidity and the scent of freshly cut grass. I'd gone, ostensibly to support Riv, who'd surprisingly befriended some of the more artistic members of Phi Delta Gamma. But I was looking for him. And I found him. He was playing volleyball, shirtless, his tan skin glistening with sweat, his muscles rippling with every move. He was laughing, joking with his brothers, seemingly carefree, effortlessly charismatic. The golden boy in his natural habitat. But I saw something else too. A flicker of vulnerability in his eyes, a hint of uncertainty that belied his confident exterior. A shadow of the man I'd glimpsed in my studio, the man beneath the mask. My gaze lingered, tracing the lines of his body, the way his muscles flexed and stretched as he moved. The way his dark hair curled damply at his temples and the nape of his neck. The way the sunlight glinted off the sweat that trickled down his chest, disappearing into the waistband of his shorts. My breath caught in my throat. My core clenched. I felt a heat, a throbbing awareness between my legs, a visceral response that I couldn't deny. I wanted him. Not just physically, though the physical pull was undeniable, almost overwhelming. But I wanted more. I wanted to unravel him, to understand him, to break through his carefully constructed defenses and see the real man beneath. I imagined walking up to him, right there on the quad, in front of everyone. I imagined reaching out and touching him, tracing the muscles of his chest and abs with my fingertips, feeling the heat of his skin, the hard ridges beneath the smooth surface. I imagined running my hands along the expanse of his broad, muscular back, feeling the ridges of his spine, the subtle tremor of his muscles as I touched him. I imagined the taste of salt on his skin, the scent of his sweat mixed with his unique masculine scent, that intoxicating blend of sandalwood, citrus, and something primal. I imagined. Daph. Riv's voice, sharp with concern, broke through my reverie. I blinked, startled, and the image of Polo, sweaty and shirtless, vanished, replaced by the reality of my studio, the cold metal beneath my hand. You okay? Riv asked, her eyes narrowed, studying me with that unnerving perceptiveness of theirs. You were miles away. Just thinking, I mumbled, feeling my cheeks flush with heat. Riv raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. About. I hesitated, then gestured towards the sculpture. About the piece. About how to connect the leaves. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was thinking about the sculpture. But the connection I was contemplating was more than just the physical joining of metal and wood. It was about the connection between me and Polo, the dangerous, exhilarating, terrifying connection that threatened to consume me. Riv didn't press, but her knowing look told me she wasn't fooled. She knew. She always knew. I turned back to the sculpture, trying to focus, to regain some semblance of control. But the images, the fantasies, lingered, a persistent, throbbing undercurrent to my thoughts. I picked up a small wooden leaf I had carved earlier, the piece crafted from weathered wood, scarred by time and the elements. It felt solid and real in my palm, a stark contrast to the swirling emotions inside me. I ran my hand over it, feeling the grooves, the knots, the imperfections that gave it character, that made it unique. With a soft sigh, I grabbed some sandpaper and began to gently rub the surface, revealing the wood's hidden warmth, its subtle grain. The repetitive motion soothed me, but my thoughts drifted to Polo. I imagined his hands on me, exploring my body with that same careful attention, that same appreciation for the contours, the imperfections. I imagined his fingers tracing the curve of my body, the swell of my hip, my sensitive skin. A shiver ran through me. I imagined his touch, both gentle and demanding, igniting a fire within me, a fire that burned hotter, deeper than any welding torch. A fire that melted away my defenses, revealing the true me beneath the rough exterior, the vulnerabilities I kept hidden from the world. I closed my eyes again, letting the fantasy take hold. I imagined him stripping me, slowly, deliberately, his eyes dark with desire, his hands lingering on each button, each strap, each inch of exposed skin. I imagined the feel of his breath on my neck, his lips on my shoulder, his tongue tracing the curve of my collarbone. My body heated. I opened my eyes. The leaf in my hand suddenly felt unbearably symbolic. Was I like this piece of wood, weathered and scarred, waiting for someone to see the beauty hidden within? Was Polo that someone? Could he see past the rough exterior, past the defenses I'd so carefully constructed, to the vulnerable heart that beat beneath? The questions swirled within me, unanswered, a reflection of the uncertainty that clouded my future. But as I continued to sand the wood, smoothing away the rough edges, a sense of hope emerged. Maybe, just maybe, I was ready to let someone in, to let them see the real me, imperfections and all. Maybe I was ready for Polo.